Her smile faltered for the first time in public. The actress who had been perfect at grief began to show cracks. She started making mistakes in court filings, missing deadlines, and contradicting statements she had made just days before. Her attorneys grew nervous. The cool confidence she had worn like armor began to feel like a costume unraveling at the seams. And yet, even as she stumbled, she lashed out. There were public denials, vicious rebuttals, and attempts to character assassinate anyone brave enough to speak. She painted herself as the victim, a grieving widow fighting for what her husband had left. Some believed her, some didn't, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The true turning point, though, came in a small cold room where an auditor presented a single damning ledger entry. It tied a payment directly from Andrew's company to a shell corporation that, on paper, was owned by Emily's brother. There was no plausible explanation, no innocent interpretation. The ledger entry spoke a language that lawyers, accountants, and judges understand: intent. I sat there, hands folded, as the evidence unfolded like a slow, inevitable storm. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Months of pain and patience had led to this moment. Emily's web was unspooling, thread by thread. But the hardest part was still to come. Exposing corruption is one thing. Holding someone accountable, making them face the people they have betrayed, is another. I could see the storm on the horizon, hear the first distant thunder of public outrage and legal consequence. Emily could try to run, but I had learned she could not hide forever. As the section of our story closes, the courtroom doors were about to open. The first witnesses had been called, the press was waiting, and Emily, for all her rehearsed composure, was finally beginning to tremble. Emily had always believed she was untouchable. She thought grief would shield her, arrogance would protect her, and money would buy loyalty. But as the storm I had quietly built reached its tipping point, her carefully constructed world began to crumble. It started with small cracks, missed deadlines, contradictory statements, and the nervous glances she threw at her own attorneys. Friends who had once supported her began avoiding her calls. Advisors who had whispered secrets now quietly disappeared. Every person she had counted on to maintain her empire of lies was slipping away one by one. The reporters' follow-up pieces only fueled the fire. Each article meticulously documented evidence, timelines, and inconsistencies. The public began to murmur. Questions started floating into social media, then into conversations at offices and dinner tables. Emily, the woman who had laughed at my pain, was now under a microscope she had never anticipated. I watched from the sidelines as her confidence faltered. The carefully rehearsed composure she had worn like armor began to crack. There were moments when her hands shook during meetings, when her voice wavered in interviews, and when her smile faltered for just a second too long. But it wasn't just the public or the press. The legal machinery I had quietly set into motion was relentless. Our motions forced disclosure of hidden accounts, emails, and contracts she had hoped would never see the light of day. Each new piece of evidence revealed not only her greed, but her planning. The months of careful deception, the exploitation of Andrew's death, the lies she had spun for everyone around her. I remember one particular morning vividly. Her brother, once a silent accomplice, was summoned to court to testify. He had no choice but to reveal the truth about the offshore accounts and the transfers. His testimony was precise, factual, and utterly damning. Emily sat in the courtroom pale, her hands clasped tightly, lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time, the mask slipped. Then came the financial audit. Every transaction, every hidden ledger, every offshore account was dissected and exposed. The extent of her betrayal was staggering. $55 million didn't just vanish. It had been redirected, concealed, and manipulated with cold precision. And now all of it was laid bare, visible to anyone willing to look. I could feel a strange mixture of emotions watching this unfold. Rage, yes, but also relief. Grief, yes, but also satisfaction. The woman who had tried to destroy me, to erase me from my own life, was finally being held accountable. And it was not just about money. It was about truth, about justice, about exposing the darkness behind a smiling face. Emily tried to fight back. She hired new lawyers, tried desperate maneuvers, and attempted to spin a story of victimhood. But every lie she told now carried weight against her. Every attempt at deception only added to the record. only strengthened the case against her. And the most powerful moment of all came quietly, without fanfare. A friend of Andrew, someone Emily had never considered, came forward with emails and messages that proved she had planned this all along. The chain of betrayal was undeniable. No excuse, no justification could erase it. I sat quietly through it all, watching the woman who had stolen everything from me shrink under the weight of her own actions. The fear in her eyes, the trembling in her voice, the collapse of the world she had built on lies. It was poetic justice. Not because I wanted to see her suffer, but because truth has a way of finding those who try to hide from it. By the end of this chapter, Emily was no longer the confident, untouchable figure she once appeared to be. The courtroom and the public had seen the real her, the betrayal, the greed, the cold calculation. And as the doors closed that day, I knew the next stage was coming, the confrontation that would seal everything. The day of confrontation arrived quietly, almost unremarkably. But for me, it felt like the world had narrowed into a single tense moment, a moment I had waited months to witness. Emily, once untouchable, was about to face the consequences of every deceitful act she had committed. The courtroom was packed, yet the silence was deafening. I could feel the weight of months of grief, betrayal, and preparation pressing down on my shoulders. This was no longer just about money. This was about truth, justice, and finally reclaiming the dignity that had been stolen from me. Emily entered confident at first, as if rehearsing the same smile and poise she had shown so many times before. But confidence is a fragile thing when built on lies. I could see it flicker the moment she saw the stack of documents laid before the judge, the evidence that traced every hidden transfer, every manipulated account, every secret deal she had made to steal what wasn't hers. I didn't need to speak. My presence alone carried the weight of months of silent strategy and relentless patience. For the first time, Emily looked at me not with a smile, not with feigned grief, but with fear. That fear was satisfying, but it was also necessary, a reminder that actions have consequences, and betrayal leaves traces no one can fully erase. One by one, witnesses took the stand. Accountants, friends, even her own brother. Each delivered facts that painted a clear, undeniable picture. Her network of lies began to unravel publicly, each thread exposing the calculated nature of her deceit. She tried to interrupt, to object, to sway the narrative, but the court had already seen the pattern: meticulous planning, manipulation, and exploitation. Then came the moment I had waited for, the one that made the months of planning, grief, and betrayal worth enduring. The judge addressed her directly, not in anger, but in cold, impartial authority. "Emily, your actions have caused immense harm to a grieving father, destroyed trust and misappropriated assets. The court finds your conduct unacceptable." I could see the color drain from her face. Every legal loophole she had hoped to hide behind had been closed. Every advisor, every accomplice who had supported her schemes had turned evidence against her. There was no escape. And then she did something I hadn't fully expected. She began to plead, not for leniency in court, not in legal terms, but with me personally. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Robert, please, help me. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I need your guidance." The irony was almost unbearable. This was the woman who had kicked me out of my home, who had stolen everything I had, who had smiled while destroying my life. And now she begged me for help. I looked at her, not with anger, but with a calm that only comes from surviving betrayal. I let her see the consequences of her choices in my eyes: disappointment, resolve, and the quiet assertion of justice. I could have helped her, perhaps softened the blow, but I realized something crucial. Some lessons must be learned in full measure. The court's final rulings restored what was rightfully mine. Assets were returned, hidden accounts exposed, and Emily's attempts at manipulation permanently documented. The law had caught up with her, but the moral victory was mine as well. Not because I had crushed her, but because truth had triumphed and justice, patient, relentless, undeniable, had been served. As I walked out of that courtroom, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Grief would always remain for Andrew, but the betrayal that had threatened to consume me was resolved. I had endured, observed, and acted with patience. The woman who had sought to destroy me had been unmasked, not by my anger, but by my persistence and adherence to truth. This confrontation taught me that revenge isn't about blind rage or hasty retaliation. True payback is strategic, measured, and bound by justice. It's about exposing deceit, reclaiming dignity, and ensuring that betrayal cannot be ignored. And as Emily disappeared from my life, shamed and exposed, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Not because the past was erased, but because I had survived it, and emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to honor my son's memory without the weight of stolen trust hanging over me. The dust finally settled. The courtroom battles were over, the hidden accounts revealed, and Emily's web of lies completely exposed. Justice had been served, not through vengeance alone, but through patience, persistence, and the careful pursuit of truth. I walked back into my home, Andrew's home, for the first time since she had locked me out. Every room carried memories, echoes of laughter, whispers of life that once filled the space. The grief didn't disappear. It never will. But standing there, reclaiming what was mine, I felt a sense of closure that went beyond material restitution. In the following weeks, life returned, quietly but steadily. I rebuilt connections with family and friends who had been distant, some out of uncertainty, others out of fear. I re-examined Andrew's business and began restoring the legacy he had entrusted to me. Each step forward reminded me that even in the face of loss, life could continue, stronger, wiser, and more vigilant. But the lesson of this ordeal went deeper than finances, homes, or court rulings. It was about trust and vigilance, yes, but also about resilience and the quiet power of patience. Betrayal can cut deeper than grief, and people you love may sometimes reveal faces you never expected. But even in those moments you have a choice, to crumble or to rise. I chose to rise. Revenge, I learned, isn't about cruelty or malice. It's about reclaiming your life, exposing deception, and ensuring that truth prevails. The most satisfying victories aren't always the loudest. Often, they are the ones that happen quietly, steadily, until the person who tried to destroy you finally sees the weight of their own actions. And as for Emily, she faded from my life, exposed and humbled, not humiliated for the sake of cruelty, but held accountable for the choices she made. It's a reminder that deceit may offer temporary power, but it cannot withstand persistence, scrutiny, and time. As I sit now, reflecting on everything, I know this: grief may never leave, betrayal may scar deeply, but patience, determination, and adherence to truth can overcome even the darkest of betrayals. Andrew's memory is no longer overshadowed by deceit. It shines as a guiding light, a reminder that even in the face of immense pain, justice and moral clarity can prevail. And to anyone watching this story, know this: life will test you, people will disappoint you, and betrayal may strike when you least expect it. But never let grief or anger cloud your judgment. Take your time, observe carefully, and let truth guide your actions. Because in the end, patience is a power far greater than revenge, and justice, when pursued wisely, can restore not only what was lost, but also the peace you deserve. The storm had passed, I had survived. And though the scars remain, so does the lesson. Betrayal can destroy trust, but it cannot destroy truth. And truth always finds a way to shine. The world may betray you, and people you trust may try to destroy everything you hold dear. But patience, truth, and persistence can turn the tide. If this story shocked you, inspired you, or left your heart racing, then don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Fatik and join us for more real-life tales of betrayal, revenge, and justice. Share your thoughts and your own experiences in the comments. Your story could inspire someone to find strength in the face of betrayal. Remember, truth always finds a way, and revenge always has its moment.